My name is James Stowe. I am an illustrator and graphic designer. I am also a part-time art instructor, and you are listening to the GuildCast.
GuildCast is a weekly podcast series based on the 3 pillars of the Graphic Artists Guild: advocacy, community, and business resources. Keep listening to learn more about the Graphic Artists Guild and visit our website at www.graphicartistsguild.org.
In order to get your online presence popping, okay, well, I'm going to click a link in your bio, and then what? What? The clicking the link in my bio is to help you, in order for you to understand what it is to be on social media, how easy it is to put together the visuals, what you need in order to put together the best captions that are the most effective.
This week's bonus episode comes courtesy of the South via Yanique Da Costa, former South Region Rep and social media guru. For this Guild's webinar replay, Yanique deep dives into how we can increase our social media following and engagement across Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
I want to introduce Yanique Da Costa. She was born in Kingston, Jamaica, and migrated to the U.S. in 2006. She received an associate degree in graphic design, a bachelor degree in studio arts, and a master's of fine arts in media design, and has worked on 360 brand development projects with a large number of big brands like Norwegian Cruise Line, HBO, and One United Bank. Yanique is also a passionate fine artist and painting instructor. And as you must know, she's also an avid social media user. And I'm thrilled to introduce Yanique.
Hi! How's everyone doing? I'm sure no one can answer me because I can't hear you. Your microphones are off. But I hope the snow is not doing too bad. All the people on the West Coast are enjoying the better weather. So just today, I really want to talk about, social media and how it affects us as creatives and how we can function and how we can use it to our benefit. So hopefully at the end of this, you will be able to have some actionable things to move forward with and start propelling your online presence to another level. So yeah, that's me. That's what I look like. So as Ed said, he spoke about me as an immigrant here from Jamaica. I basically came here, looking for educational pursuits, and then I started my career. I have been an internationally exhibited fine artist with my acrylic paintings. I have won my share of graphic design awards and been in juried exhibitions, and I am also the Southern Region Rep for the Graphic Artists Guild, which is, for me, the most exciting part of everything I just said. So in probably about a year, probably a little under a year, I basically took my social media following from a cumulative 2,000 to 10,000 plus engaged followers, which for me was super exciting because I felt like I needed to get myself out there a bit more without having to leave the house, which sounds really strange, but for me, I can lock myself in a room and design, draw, and paint for days. But that's not very helpful if no one knows about it, because that means no one can purchase it, no one can hire me because I'm just locked away in this place. So for me, social media was a way to basically to put myself out in the world, garner some exposure so that I can start to do some work and acquire some contracts. So it's been growing ever since. Today, the primary platforms that we're going to be focusing on are going to be Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I primarily think that those platforms are where people need to really hone their skills, because everyone thinks they know how to use them, but no one's really amplifying the platforms to the best of their ability. It's like, oh, I posted something today. Great. That honestly means nothing in the grand scheme of things, at least not if you do it on its own. So why is it that you would want to amplify your social media presence or your online presence? So similarly, if you're like a super introverted person and you want to get exposure, you don't go to all the networking events, even though I'm not saying that you shouldn't, because it definitely helps. You want to be able to utilize these platforms to garner exposure. But garnering exposure doesn't automatically equate to dollars. But what it does equate to is a larger audience that would potentially send you an email or leave a comment that says, hey, this is great. How can I hire you to do this? You know, you still have to do the work in terms of like giving your pitch and, you know, doing the right market research and making sure you're speaking to the person in a way that they're going to be receptive. You still have to do your contracts and you still have to send an invoice. Like, you're not going to just post something and then all of a sudden your bank account is like, oh my gosh, it's lit. No, that's not how it works. But more followers equals more earning potential, because you garner more exposure and you can have more direct conversations with a wider audience. So what you're seeing here is basically the broader scope of different levels of social media users. So you have your tier ones. And your tier ones is people who post things on Facebook or Instagram. And I'm using those as primary examples. And it's their personal page. And it's like, I posted this. It's so pretty. Look at me. But there's no real purpose in the statement. There's no call to action. There's nothing actionable. There's nothing for anyone to really respond to. It still seems like a hobby. Then you have tier 2, which is your personal Facebook, your personal Instagram, but then the person who's also transitioned into having a business page or a fan page on Facebook, or has now connected that Instagram page to that fan page. So, you know, now they can like look at the analytics and they can understand, you know, what kind of interaction they're getting with their audience. They can understand who their audience is. And then they're on Twitter. Because a lot of creatives, especially when people who are focused on like visual mediums, take Twitter for granted, but Twitter is amazing. It's everything. But we'll get back to that. Then there is tier 3. So you're on personal Facebook, personal Instagram. You're on business Facebook, business Instagram. You're on Twitter. You're on Behance. You're on YouTube. So again, that's a lot of different platforms, but that's like I have this in the bag. Now it's time to kind of, pick the pace up a little bit. Tier 4 is when you're like full speed ahead. Like, okay, like I've mastered all these other platforms. I totally know how to develop imagery for all of this. Now it's time for me to like take another route to amplify the sound a bit more. Or amplify my social media sound, my social media reach a bit more. Okay, so again, we know that there are a plethora of platforms on social media. And a lot of times there's so many platforms that it could almost be noisy. And before you even start to think, well, I need to have every social media platform in order to have a good social media reach, you need to focus on developing content for these primary 3. And the primary 3 as a creative: Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So, Facebook is something that everybody's very familiar with. It's a social networking site where users create profiles, upload pictures, add videos, send messages, and basically keep in touch with friends and family. One of the great things about Facebook is that it's mostly used as a social networking site. So at a minimum, all businesses should have a Facebook page. So it's something that you kind of hear. It's like, oh, at one point it was like, what's your Facebook page? Are you on Facebook? Can I find you? You know, when someone wants to give you like a rating, it's like, oh, I'm going to go rate them on Facebook. And it's definitely one of those things that you can find being used in almost every generation. However, one of Facebook's weaknesses is that we're not really sure how it's going to carry over to the latest generation. Because, I mean, my little brother is 16 and he does not use Facebook. It's just not something that they do. They're very, they're very Instagrammers, they're, Instagram Live kind of people. Like, they're like, I'm not writing statuses for Facebook. That's lame. And I actually see a question here, and I'm going to answer it because I think it's relevant to this particular segment. I think focusing on Facebook's new algorithm as a negative is probably not necessarily the best thing, because realistically, Facebook itself is a free platform. You're not paying for it. It's accessible to everyone. If someone is looking for you, they can find you. The only real downside to the algorithm is that this service that has been provided to people for years is now requiring payment. So it's kind of like, okay, if I'm a designer and I have, done my share of working for whatever, and I have been an intern for so long, at some point, now that I've proven myself, I'm going to start asking for some dollars. So when it comes to Facebook and this algorithm, getting around that is basically pouring your, some new funds, your advertising dollars into purchasing the Facebook ads in order to increase your ability to drive traffic to your fan page. But it is still very important to have one. Okay, so in terms of having a Facebook page, how you use it is just as important as having it, because a lot of people think, okay, I have a Facebook page, I post some stuff, that's cool. But again, Facebook, as we talked about earlier, is a platform where, people are really on there for like their friends and family. So when you like randomly throw a business in there and you're like, hey, come buy my stuff, it's like, whoa, it's a little jarring. Like, I'm not very sure if this is what I really want to do or really what I want to be talking about. Nonetheless, Facebook is a place where when you are talking to people, when you're posting things, you need to be friendly, you need to be engaging, you need to be, and when I say friendly and engaging, I mean like actively having a meaningful conversation when you're posting things. So not just to post, hey, I did this illustration today, because that means nothing to a lot of people. That only means something to you. You posted something today, that's great, but what does that mean to me? It's a way to be able to ask people questions, at length, like, how do you guys feel about this particular subject matter? Or, hey, I use this particular medium and it created this texture. How do you guys feel about textures in this environment? Whatever the case may be. So, and with that, what it does is it provides the ability to increase your visibility to Facebook in general. So like you were saying, or like I mentioned earlier, talking about the algorithm, again, there are ways to help the algorithm help you. And that's by increasing your engagement. And that's on any platform, really. Because, almost every platform now has, at least the one that we're talking about today, has algorithms that manipulate how posts are shown and to whom. So Instagram, one of my favorites, and it's one of my favorites because I've found that, at least right now, for me, it's the easiest to manipulate in my favor. Instagram is a photo video sharing app. Photos and videos are posted on Instagram and can be shared on several other networking platforms such as Facebook, Tumblr, Flickr, Twitter. But do not make the mistake to think that your Facebook content your Instagram content is automatically the right content for Instagram and Twitter. And I'll explain a bit. So it's image friendly, which is great for us as creatives who have image-based businesses. And it appeals to an audience between 18 and 29 years old, primarily. But that's not to say that someone who's 45 is not scrolling down Instagram or scrolling down their Instagram feed. So one of the strengths of Instagram is that it's fun and easy to use. I mean, scroll, double tap, scroll. And even now, in terms of like how they set up comments, it makes it so much easier to read and follow along with a conversation. One of the weaknesses that it has is that, there are other apps that provide similar experiences. However, it's super popular. So it's like, so what if someone else provides a similar experience? I realized that Instagram has been stealing. I use that word. I'm not sure if that's the word to use, but has been emulating other platforms for quite some time. And they get blowback for like a week. And then everybody forgets that this belonged to someone else at one point, and they keep using Instagram.
GuildCast is a weekly podcast series based on the 3 pillars of the Graphic Artists Guild: advocacy, community, and business resources. Keep listening to learn more about the Graphic Artists Guild and visit our website at www.graphicartistsguild.org.
So, how to use Instagram? So Instagram is a really great place to share your finished projects, share your work in progress. So a lot of people want to just post like, this is my, again, I think I'm beating this one to a dead horse. This is my great photo. Awesome. But that doesn't really give your audience like a view into getting to know you and your process and feeling like, okay, well, I understand this. I get this. I want to totally hire this person. I want to dive into this service. I want to make this happen. It's also one of those platforms where people have been utilizing things like, Women Crush Wednesday or Working Woman Wednesday or like Man Crush Monday to kind of like engage with their followers. Everybody likes to be featured, likes to be seen. So that definitely helps to bridge the gap and like to throw yourself out there to people and get people to throw themselves back out there to you.
Yanique?
Yes.
How do you find these hashtags to initiate the conversation? How does one go about just trying to discover them and trying to discover which ones kind of apply to them?
So I'm definitely going to be talking about hashtags a little bit more further on, but just to give you like a general answer, a lot of times it's really from going into the search bar and typing keywords and identifying how many people are using those hashtags and if it's directly related to you. Because anybody can make a hashtag, right? But you want to be able to utilize hashtags that are not just being used by you, but that are commonly used so that when someone searches or uses a hashtag or hits a hashtag, you can then be exposed to all the other people that are utilizing that hashtag or looking for things that fall within that hashtag or that title, that caption, that category.
I have a question from Carolyn. Have you dabbled in Snapchat at all? Mm-hmm. Do you have any thoughts on Snapchat versus Instagram?
Oh, I love Snapchat, but I would definitely not say that it's Snapchat or Instagram. Snapchat is a really great way to do real-time documentation of the creative process, which for me is so much fun to just be like, doing this, changing this, taking this color, putting this together. This is what's happening right now. However, that's for people who are online right now within the next 24 hours. Like it's very immediate. I mean, of course you can save certain stories and save certain pictures, but it's all about immediate gratification. Whereas Instagram, you're able to provide a glimpse into your world that doesn't require someone's immediate attention. So Someone can go on your Instagram feed and look at something that you did a year ago and say, man, this is great. I still want to connect with her because of this particular thing. So I don't think it's Snapchat versus Instagram. I think both are valuable, but today I really want to focus on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, because I feel like once you have really understood how to utilize these three platforms, you'll be able to basically go out there and conquer almost any other one, because these three platforms have elements of almost every other platform that you can hone and utilize elsewhere.
So we're having a lot of conversations in the chat box about about Facebook's, about Cambridge Analytica breaching Facebook's, I'm not even sure how to term this. I'm looking for a good link to send to post, but is that something that we want to get into? I kind of feel like we need to, as I mentioned in chat, I think we kind of need to wait and see what the fallout is with Facebook before answering questions like, what's the alternative to Facebook or Instagram, because Instagram is owned by Facebook. What are the alternatives? Where should we go from here? I know that it's a really important question, but I think maybe we're just so close to all this information coming out that, if we were having this webinar like 2 weeks from now, I think we could talk about it. But I think for this way, and tell me if you agree, Yanique, that maybe we should just kind of step over that for now, and with apologies, it's a very valid question, but or concern, but we may be too close to it right now. What are your thoughts there?
So personally, I feel like because we are nowhere near really understanding what the parameters are or what they're facing or how it could potentially affect us, I think we should probably focus more on understanding the platform itself and kind of, again, and with apologies, kind of step over it. And then once we get into a place where we know how it affects us, then we can worry about, redirecting ourselves or having alternatives. Because for right now, if you even want to talk about an alternative for any of these three platforms, there is no real competition at the moment, because you're going to hop onto a new platform that no one's using. You can probably use the platforms in a similar way, but who's going to come see it right now when the other three platforms are up, running, functional, and still accessible to everyone?
But you can see that there's a lot of movement on, for example, Twitter, of people debating whether or not to just drop Facebook completely, and we'll have to wait and see if there's if a lot of people kind of decide to adopt that.
Yeah, I'm not. To be quite.
No.
Go ahead.
This is your presentation.
Well, I was going to say, to be quite frank, like, I just don't see it happening that way. I really don't. Facebook has kind of like come out of nowhere, like created this ridiculously large storm for everyone, and it's been beneficial to not just people's personal lives, but to people's businesses. And I just don't see it just getting up and going away like that.
Let's move on and continue with the presentation. Thank you.
Okay. So Twitter, another one. So Twitter is a micro-blogging site that recently increased its character count from 140 characters to 240 characters, which is awesome. And basically, the messages that you send on there are called tweets, and it allows you to register and send tweets. So you're like, you as a particular person is stating this, is microblogging about this. And Twitter's strengths really lie in posting info in real time, so that any business can deal with in momentum updates, such as maybe like news organizations or sports related content. When they're including Twitter in their marketing efforts, it can be like, okay, this is happening right now. This is going. Oh, okay. Anyway, so again, another strength, it's being used by large segments of the population. And And it's recently become a lot more popular because we have some very high-powered people that utilize it as a way to share news, again, in real time. Weaknesses, it can be a distraction. Kind of like what just happened to me when I'm like over here reading everything that you guys are writing in the chat and trying to have the webinar. It's like, oh, okay, a little bit of ADD, missing it. Oh, need to focus. But it definitely helps. It definitely helps that it's being used by a large demographic.
But you're going to stop looking at the chat now.
So, right? I don't know how to make it go away, so I have to cover it with something.
Yep.
Okay, so basically, a lot of times people think you can just go on Twitter and tweet, "This is my picture, please buy my work," or "This is my illustration, please go to my website and purchase my services." It doesn't work that way. You have to actually provide content that is engaging, that is beneficial. Like, I don't want to follow you if all you do is talk about what you did today. And that sounds kind of mean almost, but if we're not friends and I am trying to garner information about your business and how it functions, how it's beneficial to me, I need you to educate me, and I need you to tell me how you are the subject matter expert on whatever subject you want or whatever service you're expecting me to purchase from you. And then I also want you to show me how great of a job you've been doing, so I can actually feel like, okay, well, you're not just doing stuff just to do stuff. Why is this a good job? Because, now I know because you gave me all this information. Again, in a micro-blogging fashion.
Yanique?
Uh-oh.
We have a good question from T. Baker. I kind of feel like we might cover it a little bit later, but just in case. So the question is, what's the strategy behind why a graphic design business might need to use Twitter? Obviously you don't want to be informing your clients about, informing your competition about what's going on with your clients and putting them in a position where they might poach them, etc.
Okay, so that is actually a really great question. We will talk about it more further, but I do want to answer it now. So if you are a graphic design business or you own a graphic design business and you're on Twitter, what you really want to be focusing on is, best practices of graphic design. Our office recently did certifications, and this is what we learned. And you can probably think about that as being too transparent, and it may maybe even spark an idea for your competition. But how I think about it is, no one is going to execute what you execute, how you execute it. I'm not saying to go onto Twitter and say, this is how we did this for this client. But you still want to be able to speak about your subject or about your practice in such a knowledgeable fashion that someone wants to come into your office and learn more about how you can directly affect your business or affect their business. Does that make sense? Should I look at the chat?
Oh, keep going. You're doing great.
Yeah, exactly. No, exactly. And that's another thing too. If you say you have two people in a room and you ask them both for the same ideas, or you say, you propose the same problem, you're like, hey, this is my problem. How can, what are the solutions that you have for me? If you have one person that's giving you all this knowledge and telling you, this is how I solve problems, these are the results that I get, whatever the case may be, then you have this other person that goes, yeah, I can do that same thing. But they don't have the same proven results. They were preemptive. They came out the door swinging. They're not a copycat. That they know what they're talking about.
That's right. And Gary sums it up It hits. It sounds like you're saying we should use these platforms to converse with people instead of just as a showcase. Absolutely. And Yanique is going to get into that a lot more. So I think we need to move on, please.
Yeah.
Coming up on this episode of GuildCast.
In order to get your online presence popping, like, okay, well, I'm going to click a link in your bio, and then what? Like, what? The clicking the link in my bio is to help you, in order for you to understand what it is to be on social media, how easy it is to put together the visuals, what you need in order to put together the best captions that are the most effective.
Join the Graphic Artists Guild to listen to the full version of this episode at www.graphicartistsguild.org. GuildCast is a weekly podcast series based on the 3 pillars of the Graphic Artists Guild: advocacy, community, and business resources. Keep listening to learn more about the Graphic Artists Guild and visit our website at www.graphicartistsguild.org.